way. Other than that, it's going to happen. We can't stop it. But what we can do is take measures to reduce its effect by becoming as free as we possibly can.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Grumpy Acres. I got Spags Unfiltered with me tonight. Everybody say hi to Spags. I ran across an article last week on a website called, The Impact Investor. Now I'm not going to put the link up there because I don't want you to go there through anything that I put up. If you want to go read this stuff yourself, you can. And you'll understand the reason why here in a second. So there's an article on here and it's how to calculate your individual ESG score. And I read the title and I read the article and I said, I've got to share this with somebody. And so I sent it to Spags and I wanted to get his take on it. And his take was so awesome that I was like, okay, dude, we got to do a video talking about this. Because correct me if you think I'm wrong here, Spags. I think there's a lot of people that don't know what ESG is.
I guarantee they don't. Most people don't even know how their credit score works, let alone this.
Okay, so what ESG is? ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And what it is, it's a system that's been coming along for quite a while, actually, in the corporate world, where investors and potential investors look at the way, investors look at companies and they decide how well these companies behave towards these three aspects of what they're after. And to me, it's not a good thing. You know, and what's your initial take on ESG at a corporate level, just specifically?
I think that, like many things, at some point, at some level early on, it was probably an okay idea. I don't have a problem per se with reputation-based business, right? I mean, we all do that already. We all choose who to spend our money with based on political ideologies or commonality. Um, for example, you're probably not going to do business with a company that's adamantly anti-gun. You're just not going to do it, right? The problem with the whole concept of an ESG score is we're taking it beyond individual businesses choosing who to do business with, which is a pillar of a free society and a free market, and we're turning it into something that is undeterminable by the population. You have no choice in the fact that large corporations are adopting a predetermined system, a preconceived system, and you have no say in it. It's going to be every bit as detrimental as the credit system, in the fact that, let's say, we know that right now there's a huge push in the United States with woke leftist CEOs. Those are the people who are ultimately going to be determining how an ESG score is calculated. It's not going to be conservatives. It's not going to be libertarians. It certainly isn't going to be anarchists. It's going to be left-leaning woke CEOs who want to use this to punish political rivals. And so when it gets to that level, we're talking a whole different ball of wax than, okay, I don't want to bake you a cake, or I don't want to sell you a gun, or I don't want to be associated with you. And so I think it's going to be a very dangerous thing.
Well, and they've already started enforcing that. Bank of America canceling credit accounts for gun sellers.
Yes.
It's already started, and the problem I've got with it is it's so subjective. You know,
Yes.
if there was some sort of objectivity behind it, I might be on board with it, but there's no objectivity whatsoever, and it's whatever whim strikes somebody. Case in point,
Right.
look at I know you don't like the guy, but look at the corporate change in Twitter in the last 48, 72 hours.
Mhm.
Solely because one person bought it and is directing the way it operates, you know. And I'm not making a comment either way on the actual Twitter, but it just shows you how quickly something can swing.
Yes. And there's no consumer protection. Just like with the credit agencies, you have no choice as a consumer in the United States how credit agencies determine things. And you have no choice that in order to build good credit, the average person is going to have to be in debt. To build good credit quickly in this country, you have to have credit cards. You have to have open lines of credit. They don't reward people who save money and purchase with cash, or save, let's say, 70% of a car and finance 30% of that car. They don't reward that at all. They reward you getting into buttloads of debt.
Mhm.
And as a consumer, you have no recourse. There is no way for consumers to change the way the credit bureaus maintain and structure debt and manage your credit. And the thing with ESG is it's going to be the same. There is going to be no way for a consumer to change. There will be no competition. It will become a monopoly. And that flies in the face of every principle of a free market capitalist society that there is.
Right. And you bring up your credit score. Um, the title of the article is how to calculate your individual ESG. That is literally a social credit score. And
Yes.
it's no different. Well, I take that back. The only difference between this, what they're talking about in this article happening in the Western world and what's going on in communist China is one is driven by the government and the other is driven by woke individuals and
Corporatocracy.
by the corp exactly. And that's the only difference in it. And the fact that, gosh, the fact that people don't know about it just bothers me. This is something that's going to affect everybody. And I started thinking about what happens when they start putting individual credit score or ESG scores into play for individuals. I'm sorry, sir, your credit's not any good at this grocery store. You cannot buy food here. All because, well, why would that happen? How come? Why would somebody's credit score or social credit score be so bad that a corporation would do that? What are some of the factors that can be taken into account there?
I will almost be willing to put a ridiculous amount of silver, pre-64 silver dimes on the fact that if you are conservative, if you are libertarian, if you are open on social media about not being woke or not being part of the progressive socialist movement, if you purchase guns, if you purchase silver and gold online, if you engage in a series of commercial activities that can peg you as anything other than a democratic socialist, these folks are going to move against you. They're going to freeze you. They're going to give you higher interest rates. They're going to be, I guarantee they'll still lend to you. They still want your money, but you're going to have a much higher interest rate than the guy who loves Bernie Sanders. You're going to have a um, uh, much higher threshold to meet and probably be lent less money at a higher rate than somebody who would be in line with their political ideology.
Right.
So I think that's ultimately where it's going to go. And I think we're going to see that if you're somebody, let's say, who purchases, what's that company, Iowa Steaks, where you can buy like the big boxes of frozen
Omaha,
steaks.
Omaha steaks.
Yeah, Omaha Steaks. If you purchase through them because it's red meat, and red meat is bad for the environment, and raising cows on cattle lots are bad for the environment, and you purchase $400 worth of them every year, you're going to have a lower ESG score than somebody who buys kale.
Right. So one of the things it talks about in this article is if ESG scores reward your behavior in regards to promoting sustainability. That
Sure.
whole rewards your behavior thing just bothers me. Where is it a corporation's job to reward me for anything?
It's not, other than you purchasing their product and you get a 10% discount or you get points. That's all that they should be doing. But I promise you that social media will be tied to this. And if you're on Instaban or TikTok or Twitter Pated or Bookface or any of those places that we know data mine you and that we know quantify you and put you in categories, I would almost guarantee that they're going to reward people who are social justice oriented versus people who are freedom oriented.
I can tell you right now, they're doing that right now as we speak. There's a YouTuber that's doing a live right now while we're recording, and Yoda was watching the chat before it went live. They had not even started the conversation, and YouTube had already flagged it as potentially offensive or whatever, however they flagged it. So it's already happened, and we don't really have to extrapolate what's going to happen at the end of this all, because we've got we've got a prime example in China. In China, they allow you to travel freely, but people with low social credit scores, they can't get mass transit, they can't take airline flights. So yeah, they're allowed to travel, but de facto they're cut off from it. And they're going to do the same thing with ESG scores that the Chinese government's doing.
Sure. Sure. And I can absolutely see them not being willing to lend you money to purchase a used 2004 Dodge Ram for your farm.
Yep.
But if you want to buy a Tesla or one of these other electric hybrids or whatever, sure, they'll lend you all the money all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna use this as a tool to stifle ultimately individualism, and freedom, and the ability to do things for yourself. They're going to use this as a tool to force as many people as they can into the cities, onto mass transit, into the soup lines, on food stamps, and on all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I find really interesting about this, if you do a lot of research, the same people that rail against big corporations are applauding this, and they want it to happen. Isn't it? It's kind of contradictory, if you ask me.
Hey man, I remember when the political left was the party of anti-big pharma, anti-big corporation, anti-war, and now they're the exact opposite. They want war in where. They want you to put things into your body you might not want, and they want to punish you for not doing it. And they absolutely love big corporations now because big corporations are run by woke CEOs.
Yep. Now, do you think if the situation was reversed, where it was conservative and patriotic companies that were coming up with an ESG and promoting, you buy a gun that ups your credit score, do you think they would feel the same way about it?
Of course not. Of course not.
Well,
we have learned over the last 2 years specifically that the left is the definition of hypocrisy. And I'm not a fan of the right either. So you're to your audience, don't think that I'm, a GOP right winger, because I'm not. But if I had to pick a side to have an honest conversation with, it would be the political right, because they aren't the definition of hypocrisy nearly to the level that the left is.
well,
And the left has absolutely demonstrated for the past 2.5 years that what's good for them is not good for anybody else. It's okay when they want to own guns, but not us. It's okay when they want to pull their kids out of school and homeschool them, but not us. It's okay when they want to fly around on a Gulfstream, whatever, to all these climate conferences, but we can't do it to go to SHOT Show. They absolutely have no, they're not even trying anymore. There's not even an attempt to portray nobility on the part of the political left. They just do whatever the hell they want, and screw you if you do the same.
yeah, the mask definitely came off, and I've said this for a while, and it's not just the left, but hypocrisy is the glue that holds a lot of people's world together.
Sure.
You take away the hypocrisy and it all falls apart.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things is we need to start holding individuals accountable.
Yes.
Let them be as hypocritical as they want, but we need to hold them accountable, and we need to call them out on it. And I'm not talking about politicians. I'm not talking about somebody in a faraway state capital. I'm talking about your neighbor, your friend, and we should expect them to hold us to the same standard.
Yes.
And should the conservative side, should the patriot side create an ESG system in competition to what the woke people are doing? I say no. I say it's kind of antithetical to what we believe.
Yep.
But
everything should be at the micro level, right?
Right.
I mean, liberty is an individual thing, and that means the responsibility is an individual thing. It's not the job of a corporation to determine who's behaving. It should be up to us as individuals. It's one thing for me to say I'm not going to go to company A because they support policy A. It's another thing entirely when we lobby massive monopolies to do it on our behalf because we're too cowardly or lazy to do it ourselves.
Right. And you told a story. I don't remember. We were having a conversation, and I thought about this whenever I was researching this and doing it. But as individuals, as a group of individuals, we could create our own ESG just by our individual choices. And enough people have the same individual choices, it actually it's more effective than it being forced on people from above, because it's bottom to top, and people will listen. So if there's a business in your area that does bad things, you were talking about, it was a gun dealer that was a raging racist, and you refused to support him, and you told everybody else what a raging racist he was and that they shouldn't support him.
Yep.
You know? So
Yep, he was a avowed member of the KKK here in Kansas. I didn't even realize they were still around in Kansas.
yeah,
Apparently he was, and I got confirmation, and yeah, I put him on blast. I never went to his shop again.
so there is a way we're it may seem like we're sitting here black pilling, but there is a white pill in all this where we can come up with a solution and do it on an individual basis. So
Yes.
I started doing some more research, and I found one of the underlying things of this ESG is the 3 E's of sustainability. And I thought it was very interesting. The 3 E's of sustainability are our ecological footprint, which is the amount of water, land, and air needed to support our lives. True sustainability ensures that no one ecological footprint is too large, and what is used is also replenished in equal measure. The second E stands for equality and sustainability, is basically how much fairness there is in the system. And there's that word. I know you love that word. And then the last E is economy and sustainability, is how resources are allocated to meet the needs of the community. Gee, what does that sound like in your opinion?
Communism.
Oh, seriously?
Yes.
That last one, that you think that last one sounds like from each his ability to, or I don't even know what it is. I'm so not into communism.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely communistic because it's forced through monopoly. Again, it's one thing entirely if you as an individual want to do this. It's another thing, it's another world when you have massive entities with which you have no defense against and no way to compete against who do it for you and who decide that they're going to pick one side over another.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, Spags, there are people watching this video that know exactly what ESG is. And I'll also bet that there's a bunch of people out there that this is the first time they've ever seen anything dealing with it, or they know somebody that knows absolutely nothing about it. And my call to action for them, I realize we're not near the end of the video yet, but my call to action to them is to send this video out, or send something out about ESG to people that have never heard of it before. Because I guarantee you, a lot of middle of the road people, a lot of people that consider themselves free-minded individual independents and on the political spectrum have no idea this is coming their way. And it is coming their way. Merrill Lynch has already set it up so that people can look at their individual ESG score through their investments.
Yes.
They've already set it up to do that.
Right. And I believe I saw something with Merrill Lynch where one of their press guys was actually talking about this. And one of the examples given was if you in your portfolio invest in gold mines, right? Because you can invest in mining the same way you can the actual precious metals. And gold mines are very popular as an investment because once the gold is gone, there's generally copper right under it, right? Gold and copper veins tend to run together. So gold mine stocks are very popular as a safe bet, right? To generally do well. And he was mentioning how, well, we might not like it if that's what you invest in because there's so much environmental damage done by strip mining that we don't view the benefit of the precious metal and the industrial metal as being equal to the damage you do just by investing in such a thing.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I promise your wedding ring is made of gold and platinum there, guy. What are you talking about? Come on.
I'm sure his husband really appreciates that too.
Right.
You bring something up that I just had a funny thought. What's going to happen? Germany just recategorized coal as green energy.
Right.
Reality ran into their sustainability problems that they had. So they just reclassified it as green energy. Man, think about how that's going to screw up somebody's ESG calculations. I mean, it's like that that meme of the 2 red buttons. Which one do I push?
Right. It's going to be exactly like that because we have watched for several years now the shift of opinions constantly based on what's going to fund their party or fund their candidates or what the political will at the time wants, right? Now we have, for example, like Biden has been straight BLM supporter for what, years now.
Mm-hmm.
However, he's now campaigning on the fact that if you support a certain other candidate, you're anti-cop. The rhetoric is changing to meet their need, and it's going to be the same with what your ESG score does. Like you said with the coal, that's a perfect example. We're doing it in the US too. We're refiring coal plants that we had shut down under the Obama administration because we need them to help power electrical car out or recharging stations in these big cities. It can't be run off of wind and solar. They have to run it off coal-fired power plants.
I seriously, I think there should be a law that every EV that's sold should have a sticker on it that says "powered by coal." It should be a law. Just
like an ingredient list.
Yeah, you know, but you're absolutely right, man. I mean, it's the whole subjectivity, and I think that's I said it before, but I think out of everything that I read about it is how subjective it is. One of the things that I've taken away from my conversation with Peg, and you sat in on one of the principles of freedom thing too, is the Constitution makes things pretty damn objective, and our freedoms are not subjective. The Constitution is not a living document, and the definitions of what a right is and what limitations the government has according to the Constitution, they don't change. And the whole ESG thing flies right in the face of that, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Quite frankly, it's a shit system. And I would not support it if the political right did it either. It's, again, who you choose to spend your capital with or withhold your capital from should be your choice.
Right. Yeah, and anybody that's watching this, don't, there are people in the GOP high levels that are invested in these companies and know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing squat to squash this. And so they're don't think that we're, the basis of the ESG comes from progressivism. The whole idea behind it is, but there are a bunch of people on the political right. I'm not going to call them conservatives. They're on the political right of the spectrum that are perfectly fine with it because it's making them money.
Yep.
And we're filming this a week or less than a week ahead of the midterm elections. And I think it's really important that people understand that, and they start looking at candidates and they start voting against them. If you're gonna have a liberal in office, why don't we have a real liberal in office and not a fake conservative? I hate to sound like that, but man, that's the only way people are gonna learn and decide to actually start changing the system from the ground level up. And it kind of got off on a tangent there, but it's kind of pertinent. At least in my mind, it was. Oh, Greta. I was reading an article about her today, and she's kind of changing her tune. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was, because I was like,
I just read one too. Yeah, basically she's still doing the climate thing, but now she says that her whole goal is to undo Western culture and capitalism as a series, because it's a system of economic oppression, genocide, and racism that leads to the climate problem in the first place.
There we go. Sounds like the basis of an NSOC platform.
Yep, and I bet she loves SEC.
Oh yeah, I bet she does, man.
Or ESG, sorry.
ESG.
She probably loves ESG.
But
while she struts around in her Gulfstream 7 from country to country.
Yep. I'm glad we had this conversation. I feel a lot better. I've been chewing on this for the last week, and I was like, man, I can't wait to hear what Spags has to say about this. And I want to get this stuff off my mind, man, because it's just, it's one of those things that, I realize that as far as battling it directly, there's not much we can do. We vote with our dollars. That's about all we can do.
Counter economy, man. Keep your money out of the banks if you can. If you have small local lending institutions, actual small banks that aren't part of these large corporate conglomerates, maybe consider switching. Yeah, you'll have to deal with the fact that you don't have an ATM every 10 blocks, and you'll have to deal with the fact it takes you a week longer to get your checks in the mail if you still use checks. But at the end of the day, we will only fight the monster of progressive socialism by allowing ourselves to be hurt a little bit. We have to be willing to step back from convenience.
Mhm.
We have to be willing to drive 5 extra miles to get to an ATM that doesn't charge us $2.30 or whatever for a transaction. We have to be willing to spend a little bit more with the people we value. We have to suffer. What the founding fathers say, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. They didn't sit there and say, well, I would do this, but it's going to hurt my stock portfolio, so I better just shut up and stay in my house and do nothing.
Yep.
They put it all on the line. And
It-
until we are willing to put it all on the line and we're willing to suffer for what we believe in, we won't get anywhere because they're willing to suffer. They are absolutely willing to suffer on the left. They will suffer all day to get what they want, and they will make their suffering worse. That's what they do. They compete with who's a bigger victim,
Mhm.
but they're willing to suck at life to get their way. We're not, and we're only hurting ourselves because of it.
And they will, not only will they suffer, they'll sacrifice each other too.
Mm.
They will sacrifice somebody for the cause where the right the right does not do that, which I'm glad. I'm not saying we should. I say not right's not the right word. The conservative patriotic movement doesn't sacrifice people. In fact, they value everybody as far as the people that I know, they value everybody, in the circle. But man, you know, it's funny. It's funny how all these conversations all lead back to the same point. Building an alternative economy and building
Mhm.
your community and having like-minded people around you. You know,
Google the gray and black. Google agorism.
yeah. Okay, you hear that? I will find a. I don't know if I can do links yet. Maybe I'll find a video and I'll put it up there on a card.
Look into agorism. It is the definition of anarchist counter economy against the left, which is odd because agorism is considered to be kind of a left leaning portion of anarchy because it always took into account females in the marketplace, minorities in the marketplace. It always was willing to actually look into the suffering of people in a marketplace to alleviate the suffering, but it always did so through a private method, not through the institution of government policy, which is actually very much akin to classical liberalism, which is if you're a Jeffersonian in any stretch of the way, you would be okay with that. That's what this flag represents. It's what the whole concept is creating is fighting the beast through methods of the gray and black market.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking about something you said earlier. It says that we don't have a way to make our ESG score better. I guarantee it. Eventually, it's going to be like in the Great Leap Forward, where you're going to put on the sign and you're going to stand in front of the corporate board and you're going to tell everybody what a bad person you are and how you've seen the error of your ways. And
Right.
you may not do it physically in front of them, but you will prostate yourself in front of somebody in order to get your ESG score better if we allow it to get that far.
Yeah.
It's just the natural progression of what happens. Well, you know what? We're getting towards the end of our time. Do you want to keep the conversation going? I mean,
Hey, it's your party, man. Whatever. If you think we're good, we're good. If you want to keep going, let's keep going. I don't care.
I
One or the
think
other.
I think we've covered pretty much the whole thing. I mean, it's not really much more you can talk about it. The ESG
Mhm.
itself. I mean, that website, it had a whole bunch of links, and uh, the whole website was nothing but promoting ESG. And there
Mhm.
are other websites out there like it too. You can go look at it yourself. We've given you the basics behind it. Spags laid out a very good plan on how to combat it and do it organically and locally, which is how we defeat these things. It's better than the astroturf that we faced with these websites like what we were just talking about.
Mhm.
So I think we're pretty good, man. That the Zoom time's starting to run out, and I haven't got
Yeah.
it. I haven't got another one set up, so I
Yeah,
figured
you're fine.
this is just a great place to stop. You got any closing thoughts on this, and anything you want to share
Yeah.
with people?
Um. Look for alternative ways to do things. Instead of being on traditional social media, come to freesteading.com. Instead of going to large corporate banks, find small lending institutions. Instead of putting all your money in the bank, hold cash, hold precious metals, do crypto if that's your thing. Whatever the case may be, there's always a method by which you can reduce the effect of what others do to you. We'll never combat this. We're never going to stop it. The only way it'll ever stop is one, if it's finally regulated from the other side, which I doubt will ever happen, or two, it just collapses under its own weight and it kind of dies in a very quiet way. Other than that, it's going to happen. We can't stop it, but what we can do is take measures to reduce its effect by becoming as free as we possibly can. And as Tag from Life Done Free says, be freer today than you were yesterday. That's all you can do. So get off your fucking ass and do it.
Absolutely. You know what? I cannot say it any better than what you just said it. So I'm just going to leave it be. You guys go check out Spags Unfiltered's YouTube channel. Dude, you're doing gangbusters. You got almost as many subscribers in what, 3 months as we've got in almost 2 years. So
yeah, I got lucky, man. I'm not really sure how. I figured I'd be offending a lot more people than I am. I lose a few every now and then.
Well, I think
it always seems to gain. So
I think people enjoy the truthfulness of what you talk about, man. I know I do. I know that's why I enjoy watching your videos. Plus they just seem to be the right length. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the perfect.
That was my goal, was to capture the smoke break, potty break. You know, everyone else has hour, 45-minute long videos. I wanted short little 5 to 7 minute videos that you could watch and not feel like you were behind the power curve to get all the way to the end.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, go check out Spags' YouTube channel. I'll put a link up here. Go live life done free. Be freer tomorrow than you are today. All right. Take care, folks.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Milo.